All right. What is up, man?
Doing well. How are you, Jordan?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much for doing this again. I am so honored. I was telling you before I clicked the record button, so many people that I help, you know, they just don't look back. And I get it. Like once you're fully recovered, why would you want to revisit the worst period of your life? And so what
Yeah.
I've started to do is I'm like, you know what? Let me just talk to people while they're in that recovery process once they get, towards full recovery. So that way we can just capture this for people. And, you've been showing up to our meetings and you've been, just sharing some incredible results, man. And, like I was telling you before I clicked the record button, you're just such a positive guy, man. You have such a great energy about you
Thank you.
and you're very inspiring. And so I really wanted to just kind of capture the before and after. Obviously we got a little bit to get you to 100%,
Hmm.
but you're seeing some amazing results. And I just want people to kind of hear where you started versus where you're at now. And then also, have you kind of speak to, just how this program, our RISE program, has impacted you. Because I know there's a lot of people, they're kind of on the fence, right? It's like, okay, like is it really working for people? And so this will be a chance for people to kind of see a real person going through this and kind of what your
Hmm.
experience has been like working with me, man. So I'm excited about it. It's going to bring hope. It's going to inspire people. So let's get going, dude. So I was looking on your application that you had submitted,
Hmm.
and it looks like you said that you were experiencing depersonalization, realization, anxiety, obsessive thoughts, health anxiety, concentration and focus issues, emotional numbness, memory issues, and visual issues.
Yes. So I was experiencing a plethora of symptoms. Um, and just, tying it back to your question, like speaking on where I started as in comparison to where I am now. Where I started, it was tough. Like, just to give a little background, I've dealt with anxiety pretty much my entire life. I grew up under two anxious parents. So I think I adapted to a lot of traits that they were conveying in the house. And subconsciously, I started to become anxious as well. And, where I was when I finally found your program, it's like I had a huge panic attack. And then all these symptoms came on, feeling like there's a glass between me and the world, feeling like, I'm talking to my girlfriend and I'm completely disconnected from her. I feel like no emotion. And I'm like, man, what is this? Like, how am I going to figure this out? And I'm in the process of starting a new job. I'm a boxer. So I was getting ready to start training for another fight. I'm doing a bunch of different things in life. And all of this happened. And I'm like, where do I go now? Like, I feel stuck. So started doing a lot of homework on YouTube, found your course, learned a ton about what was actually going on, what was taking place, which that alone helped me so much because I didn't know, and when you don't know what happens, your mind starts to race and you start to come up with answers. So when I finally understood the science, um, it helped. And then just doing different things that you mentioned in your course, staying consistent with that. Um, and also just, working on my mindset, making sure to keep myself in a healthy state throughout the day and just overall when I'm going about different things, making sure like I'm aware and I'm mindful of what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. That's brought me to the position that I am today to where the derealization is gone. I feel much more peace, much more at ease. Can go to work, be around people, do different things, and you see the light. And as long as you're consistent, you keep going. Like now, I know I'm going to recover fully.
Dude, that's amazing. And what about some of these other symptoms? How where they at as far as all the other ones that we had mentioned? Like
Um,
what symptoms are still there and how often do
Truthfully,
they happen?
I would say I have a little bit of light sensitivity, but nowhere near what it was. Kind of
Yeah.
comes and goes, like depending on how stressed I am. I have some fatigue as well. But other than that, and I have a little bit of like twitching in my legs if I get stressed. But other than that, like everything else is gone. Like I said, derealization is gone. My emotional, like I can feel connected with people again when having conversations. Um, I can feel my body, I'm just way more myself. And it really shows you like, if you're consistent and you do the work, the results will come. But I think the issue with most people, my guess would be, is like they do the work today and then they take tomorrow off and then they'll do it for another 2 days and then they'll take 3 days off. And then it's like, oh, this isn't working. But you got to be consistent. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be consistent and the results will come.
Yeah, and I think, which I didn't know you're a boxer. What I've found is people that have a history of execution,
Mm-hmm.
those people are usually the ones that recover a lot faster than other people. Not always, but
Mm-hmm.
it seems pretty common. That's why like entrepreneurs are some of my favorite people to work with, because to be an entrepreneur, you have to execute.
Mm-hmm.
But even like competitive sports, like I've got one client, she's like a competitive horse racer or something, and she's actually like training for the Olympics or something. And but anyway, anybody who has just a history where they had to be disciplined, right? Once I show them the body-based stuff, the lifestyle adjustments for them, they just need kind of the how-to, and then they need some co-regulation, some support, and
Yeah.
they're off to the races. And so, no pun intended, I just mentioned horse races, but like what I'm saying is, I would you say that that probably helped you, is like having that history of knowing how to show up and execute? Did that help you be consistent?
Most definitely. So I would say one thing with me is like I've always been a very disciplined person, like very structured. So when I want something, like tell me how to do it and I'll do it and go get it. So it's always, for the majority of my life, I've been like that. Like I'll meet somebody who did what it is I want to do. They tell me how they did it. Cool. And I can kind of replicate the strategy on my own. So with this, I think where I struggled with my recovery process, the biggest, like before coming in contact and meeting you and learning, the different things in your method, um, where I struggled is like I didn't have an understanding of like, how am I going to do this? Like, who can I look to for guidance? What's the roadmap to success? I didn't have that. And I was piecing it together on my own, watching one YouTube video from you, another one from another guy. And then the next day I'll watch somebody else about this symptom and someone else about that. And it's like, it's too sporadic. There's no consistency. There's no actual plan. So being able to come to you and get a plan to where I can check things off of a list and know, okay, I did this today. I did that today too. Okay, I also did this one. And then looking back a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and seeing the progress, it feeds your spirit. And from there, you're able to really remain like steadfast on the journey and start to build more confidence until you get to a place where like, all right, like I feel a couple symptoms, but I'm gonna be fine. Like it's okay.
Dude, absolutely, man. Like, what was it that drew you to me? Because you said you were watching a couple different people. What was
Mhm.
it that stood out for you?
That's a great question. I think what stood out to me, well, first of all, I had dealt with DP before. So this is not my first bout with this. I dealt with it for the first time. It was like about 3 years ago. And kind of similar to a lot of other people, I smoked weed, um, got super high, and I knew to keep myself calm and cool because I kind of had an idea of like what was going on. I'm like, all right, I'm just very high, like just let me relax and ride it out. Wrote it out. The next day I woke up and I felt fine. And I remember I was at my cousin's house, I got in the shower, took a shower. As soon as I got out of the shower, it hit me like a brick wall. Like I was like, man, what's going on? Like I feel like I'm like separate from the world. Like I had to catch a flight back home that day. I was in California visiting my cousin. I had to catch a flight back to Texas. And like I'm in the car with her heading to the airport, and I'm just like closing my eyes, like just trying to fall asleep in the car because I'm like, maybe I'm just tired. Like I get to the airport, I'm looking around, I feel like I'm an outsider. So long story short, I got home that day and I started researching, going on YouTube to see what was going on. And I came across your video and you explained it, like how this was normal. And at that point, I didn't even know anything about your program. I was just watching your videos, and I I could tell you were very knowledgeable, and I just like resonated with the way that you were giving the information, and you seem like somebody who really knows what he's talking about. So just watching your video as a whole and hearing you explain it kind of brought me a sense of peace. And truthfully, after that, like I got that reassurance kind of from that video, and I just like allowed the symptoms to be there. And within like 3, 4 days, they went away. So I was like, all right, cool, like this is over, and I forgot about it. Years later, they come back again, and then same thing. I go back to YouTube. Whose video do I see? It's yours.
Oh
I'm
wow,
like,
dude!
all right.
I
It's
didn't know
crazy.
any of
Yeah,
this,
it came full
dude.
circle. So whose video do I see? It's yours. And I'm like, all right. This guy led me out before. I've watched a couple of other people, but he helped me a lot before. Let me see what's going on with him. So that's when I submitted. I think there was like an application or something online. You
Yeah.
submit the information. Then I got a call from your brother, and he gave me some confidence as well, was explaining to me the different resources you guys give. And I was like, you know what? I got to do it because I'm not going through, this. I don't want this to turn into something that's repetitive. Let me deal with this once and for all.
Wow, dude! I didn't know any of this. So you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me that you saw a video of mine and it basically gave you such reassurance that it calmed you down for a couple years. But
Mm-hmm.
because you really didn't deal with the root, it came back. And then you looked again online and then you saw me again. And then you
Yeah.
decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and work on dealing with the root this time and work with him. Wow, that is cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what happens with a lot of people is they mistake reassurance with recovery. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell people, I'm like, listen, people don't believe me until they experience it. Sometimes it takes a couple years, which is really sad, but they're just so excited that the symptoms are gone. They don't care how they are gone as long
Mm-hmm.
as they're gone. Or they'll do this distraction stuff. They'll start distracting their mind 24/7 and that's really somatic dissociation. That's where you get so deep in your head that you lose interoception, which is the experience of the embodied self. And so you're not feeling the tension, adrenaline, emotion, and fatigue. And so people think that they're recovered, but no symptoms does not equal recovered. Did you deal with
Yeah.
the root? Like the ends don't justify the means. How you got to no symptoms matters
Yeah.
in the long term. And dude, I get it though, man. Like people are just like they're suffering so badly. They just want to feel better. And I'm
Right.
glad that people are feeling better. I'm glad that you got those couple years where you were feeling good. I'm not trying to say that that's not good, but don't you want to deal with the root of this? Don't you want to actually deal with this so it doesn't have to come
Mm-hmm.
back? Like, do you want a
Mm-hmm.
couple years where you feel better? Or do you want the rest of your life where you feel better? And, I always talk about the 80/20 rule, and it's really true, man. And we were talking before the meeting about how you may want to get kind of into the personal development space. And by
Mm-hmm.
the way, dude, like like I told you, you're the guy. Like I could already tell, like
Appreciate
you're going to be amazing at it. You just anytime you talk on the meetings, man, you just bring so much hope and inspiration, and you just have just such a great energy about you. But
it. Mm-hmm.
you're gonna find, dude, the 80/20 rule is real. 80% of people are just not there where they're willing to put in the work to truly
Mm-hmm.
change. But what I'll say is I don't think it's because they're just 80% people and they'll never be that 20%. What I think is people have to go through a certain level of suffering before
Mm-hmm.
they're finally like, you know what, enough is enough. And so if I talk to somebody and I kind of feel like they're just not really there yet, like they haven't suffered enough and they're still just not really ready, I'm just like, hey, it breaks my heart. But what I
Mm-hmm.
found is if I try to wrestle with them and try to get them to be like, no, you need to deal with the root and try to get them to really deal with it and they're not ready, it doesn't work. So I'm
Waste of
like,
time.
okay, well, yeah, I'm like, you know what? I wish you the best. And then I'll hear from them 2 years later, 3 years later, Jordan, I'm ready to put in the work. I've tried acceptance. I've tried distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried meds. I've tried just letting it go away on its own. I've tried this thing, that thing, grounding techniques, talk therapy. I've tried this thing and this thing. And you know what? Like, I'm ready to put in the work. And then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now that you're ready, but I wish that people didn't have to go through all that, but it's kind of just human nature. We get people all the time. They're like, like, yeah, I found your videos 3 days ago and I'm ready to go. And I'm like, and they haven't tried anything. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
hey, this is awesome. I wish that this was more people. But, there's just something in people's minds are like, surely if I go to a therapist, they're going to help me. And I always tell people, you need to see a therapist, see a licensed mental professional. I have to say that it's important. I'm just a regular guy. But unfortunately, when it comes to especially depersonalization, realization, and trauma symptoms, there's just a huge gap in
Hmm.
education. They don't have the education that they need a lot of the time, sometimes, but it's very rare, especially with just trauma in general. And so sometimes it takes people burning through two, three, four licensed mental professionals before they're like, you know what, maybe I need to find somebody that has been through this, right? That
Hmm.
really relates with me and understands this. Because humans heal humans. We were talking about this before we started the recording. A lot of people don't understand how important it is to work with somebody that understands you. And that's not a sales pitch to work with me. That's just speaking
Hmm.
to how we're wired as mammals. We're wired to heal each other, to co-regulate each other. And
Hmm.
feeling understood and validated is very, very important. I can show you studies that show that it's up to 45% of healing. And that's a lot of the reason why I can help people. It's not because I'm super smart or whatever, or have some fancy degree or anything. It's just because I've been through it. And people feel calm knowing that somebody has actually been through it and beat it. And then they get
Hmm.
on our group calls and then they're surrounded by a bunch of people, such as yourself, that are beating it in real time. And that creates co-regulation. And so, yeah, we have body-based things that we need to do. There's lifestyle adjustments, but humans heal humans, man. That's a very big part of this. So my next question for you is, like, if we can go back just a little bit, how is this affecting your life? If you don't, but you don't have to say anything that you
Hmm.
don't feel comfortable with. I don't want you to stress yourself out or anything, but how is this affecting your life whenever you did have all these symptoms that I read off at the beginning? How is it affecting your relationships, your
Hmm.
career? How is it affecting you?
Had a huge effect on my life. You know, you said something important, relationships. Like I was in a relationship, mind you, when this first hit. And thank God I had a girlfriend who was very supportive and definitely was there for me riding it out. But I noticed with me, like I was withdrawn, I was more pulled away to myself, so I'm naturally like a very energetic person. I like to do different things, try new things, very open-minded. And then when I had that panic attack and all of these symptoms came on, all of a sudden it's like I'm this person who's like pulling away, sitting by myself, so my girlfriend could see a difference and she supported me through it. Um, Another thing too, I started to develop like a very short fuse. I was angry, funny enough, and I was angry, I think, because it's like, man, I have all these things I'm working on. I have all these things that I want to do. I have these big aspirations, and now I feel stuck, and it made me
Yeah.
angry. I became very frustrated, and I'm not. I was mindful of it, so I would try my best not to take it out on the people around me, but like I would get annoyed faster. I would have less patience, so those are all things that I noticed when like I was in the trenches. Another thing too, like I started withdrawing from my friend. I remember I'd get calls from my friends and it's like phone will ring and I'm like, I don't feel like talking, and I would just put it away. I'd get a call from a family member and it's like, I'll call them later. So these are all different things that, like, speaking for myself, I found myself doing that were not in my nature. And then now it's like phone rings, I'll answer it. And like, even if I do have that thought, like, don't answer, I already know, like, answer it because this is what I need to keep showing the nervous system, like, what it needs to see. Um, so it affected my life in a variety of ways, work as well, you name it. Like, when your spirit and your energy is not balanced, people can see that. You're going to be able to feel it, of course, as well. And man, there, you can't put a price on being able to have somebody there to guide you through the process. It's like if you play a sport, what happens? You have a coach. If you're doing something wrong, what does the coach do? He guides you, he directs you, he provides a path to success for you. And if you trust him and you follow it, what happens? The results come. So that's why I thank you as well, Jordan, for being here and being able to be somebody that we can work with and trust to guide us through this journey.
Yeah, dude, it's my honor, man. It is. It just seeing results like yours, man, it's what keeps me going on this because it's hard. It's not an easy job. It's, you got so many people that just are constantly just needing your help, and they're just so just hopeless at first. And
Hmm.
it's just such an up and down process, and I have to be their hope. And, you know, but it's stories like yours, man, that just keep me doing this, like in order
Hmm.
to be able to do this, I've had to develop a lot of skill sets, right? Leadership and entrepreneurship and marketing, you know, sales, content creation, you know, team building, I've got a team now of people, like I could do a lot of other things at this point. I
Hmm.
could very successfully. And I am doing a few other things too, by the way, but this is right now my main thing. And the reason why I keep this my main thing is because every time that I'm like, you know what, like I don't think people understand. Like I'm doing this because of you. Like,
Hmm.
like what's keeping me doing this thing is not because I love being seen online. I actually hate being seen. Like at church, like I sit in the back. Like I don't like being seen. I don't want to be on social media. I am not that guy. I'm actually a very private person. I've got a Facebook. I don't post on there for the most part. Like I'm a
Hmm.
private individual, but the reason why I keep doing these videos and I keep helping people is because people are having their lives change. And
Hmm.
I don't like to ever make people feel like I'm forcing my spiritual views on them. But I do believe that God has called me to do this.
Hmm.
I do believe that, man. And for years, I was like, there's no way God could use me in the mental health field. Like, there's just no way. Cause I always thought, okay, I'm going to be like in a church or whatever,
Hmm.
or on a missions field somewhere. But like, I do believe that God loves people so much, whether they're a believer or not in Him, and He wants to help them. And sometimes people just need just a little bit of hope, a little bit of tools, a little bit of understanding. And then like that's what got me is I'm like, well, I'm not working directly with Christians, I'm a Christian.
Hmm.
And then I was like, well, you know what? What if God uses me to help somebody heal?
Yeah.
Well, now that they're healed, they can actually be in a position to choose if they want to follow God or not. Because like
Hmm.
whenever you're traumatized, it's like you can't really focus on spiritual
It's
stuff.
tough.
You're like you said, when your spirit's broken, dude, that's what
Yeah.
trauma does, man, is it breaks your spirit. Like you can't focus on anything. You can't even
Right.
make it through the day, let alone that. So I think that I'm either like I do work with people that are of faith, people that are of my same beliefs or whatever, but regardless of whether they're a person of faith or not a person of faith, I still think it's God coming into their life because He loves
Hmm.
people and He uses people, right? Like that's what He does. Like most of the time, if you pray, God help me, He's not going to send like 10 legions of angels into your bedroom with
Yeah.
trumpets, and be like, doo, 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 you prayed and I'm here.
Yeah.
No, He's going to send people. Just like I believe that God's going to send you into a lot of people's lives that are
Uh,
struggling with a sense of purpose and a sense of hope. And you're going to come into their life, man, and just be able to help motivate them and give them that light that they need, dude. So
yeah.
anyway,
Can I
um,
add something really quickly
yeah,
too,
yeah, yeah,
Jordan?
yeah, yeah.
Like
Please, please, please.
what I was gonna say is that this is super important. Like when I started this process, like, and this is of course, again, this is not my first time dealing with DPDR. Like I've dealt with this before, but I never took the time to understand it and really learn what's going on and the ins and outs so that I can prevent this from ever, not prevent it from happening, but know how to deal with this properly. Um, so overall, what I'm saying is like in the beginning, I think it's very easy to see this as like, man, why did God do this to me? Or like,
Yeah.
how did this happen to me? Like, how did I get here? Like, me of all people, like, what is it? And to be angry about it, but it's really a blessing. And the reason it's a blessing is because you develop a better understanding of yourself, so that
Yes.
when other people, like once you get past this and other people get shaky in certain situations or other people, they don't know how to deal with stress or they don't know how to deal with trauma. You do.
Yep.
So now when life gets stressful and life gets a little shaky, it doesn't shake you as much because you already have
Yeah.
a foundation built and like, all right, I've been through worse before. Like this is nothing. So I encourage everybody watching, like, nah, it's really a blessing, even though it's tough, I understand. Trust me, it's not easy when you're in the trenches. But after this, huh, you won't even think twice. It's a gift.
Yeah. And dude, so well put. You have a gift of speech, man. It's awesome. I just
Thank you.
you're a conversationalist and you're just so inspiring. That's what I'm saying, dude. It's awesome. But what I tell people is these symptoms are the greatest opportunity of your life. And a lot of people don't get this opportunity. You have two choices. You're either going to feel miserable or you're going to become the calmest, most focused, healthiest person that you've ever been.
Hmm.
So a lot of people, they haven't tapped anywhere near into their full potential. And there's really not that many. I mean, they feel bad, but they don't feel like death. And
Hmm.
so there's really not that motivation that pushes them. You have the ultimate motivation. If you don't become the calmest, healthiest, focused, best version of you, you're going to stay stuck in these symptoms. You're going to feel like death. And so I
That's right.
always say that the symptoms are like like a gym coach that comes into your life with a whistle and is like, "Hey, you're in your head all day. Hey, we need to teach you how to
Fix that.
self-regulate. Hey, you
Yeah.
know what? That relationship that you're in, no. Boundaries or don't be in it. You know
Hmm.
what? You really don't listen to your body at all. You need to start being interoceptive, which is the
Hmm.
experience of the embodied self.
Yes.
You really don't have any boundaries in life. Your sleep is just, it's not ever really been a part. Your diet is kind of like, it's like Grubhub or DoorDash every meal. Um, it's like these symptoms reveal so much,
Hmm.
right? The symptoms are really just a distraction, man, because everybody gets focused on them. The symptoms are like a check engine light in a car. They're there to point you to look underneath the hood. But because the symptoms are so scary and people don't have the right education, they spend all their time focusing on the symptoms. And I'm like, that's not, the symptoms are biologically correct for the state that you're in. There's no point in focusing on those symptoms. We need to focus on what's going on in your body and in your
Hmm.
life that are conveying so much threat to your nervous system that it's keeping you perpetually in fight, flight, freeze response. And
Hmm.
there lies recovery, right? So I love what you're saying. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but
Hmm.
more of your time has been wonderful. You know, for that person that has been watching my videos and they're maybe watching a couple different people and they're like, you know what, like I hope Jordan Hardgrave's legit, but what if I join his program and it doesn't work? Or, what if it's not, gonna help me? What would you say to those people just to kind of help ease some of those fears? As somebody who's in the program, you're in the meetings, you see the people, you
Hmm.
see the results. I mean, in the last week I've had, I think, like 4 or 5 people that have sent me messages saying that their depersonalization realization is gone. And
Yeah.
by the way, I mean, as you've seen, we help with so many more symptoms than just that. I mean, any
Hmm.
symptoms connected to fight, freeze, whether it's health anxiety, generalized anxiety, panic attacks, emotional numbness, memory issues, time feeling distorted, existential obsession and rumination is a really big one. But what would
Hmm.
you say to those people that are kind of on the fence?
I would say, and I wanted to speak on this earlier, so I'm glad you asked me that question. So I purchased someone else's program in the past. Of course, I'm not going to say the name, but I
Yeah.
purchased other programs. But the difference that I saw with your program that stuck out to me most is that you give people everything they need to not only recover, but to stay recovered. Because I think a big issue
Yes.
that I ran into for a long time is like, of course, you hear the acceptance thing like all over YouTube, everybody in the anxiety space, it's acceptance, acceptance. And I think the acceptance is great. I agree with you, it's excellent. And it helped me a lot for years, but acceptance is not enough because if acceptance was enough, I wouldn't have gotten this second bout of dpdr to where I felt like I couldn't deal with it myself because I think acceptance is useful for sure, but like it's not enough. There's more to it than just that. And your program gives the extra that we need to kind of get us over that edge and be like, all right, I can use this as a tool, but the other things too are going to play a part as well. So it's like a car, you know, you don't just need a steering wheel to drive a car. You need an engine, you need doors, you need, you know, a muffler, you need all these pieces to make the car run successfully. So acceptance is one piece necessary to get that vehicle going, but it's not everything. And you give everything in your program. So that stuck out to me. That's the biggest difference I had seen in comparison to some of the others in this space. So I would encourage people that if you're looking for a program that's really going to give you all in one and you're where you're able to work with somebody who's really dealt with this and understands this process, me personally, I would direct them to you.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm humbled, and I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad that you said that. And that's one thing that I really do focus on is the long term, right? And most people just have short term thinking. And again, I get it. You're going through hell, you want to feel better. You don't care how it happens, especially if you can find just that one thing that's going to make this all go away. I've been that guy before. I get it. But you're already suffering. We might as well just go ahead and just take this time
Mm-hmm.
to really deal with the roots so that way you never have to deal with this again, right? Because it's very frustrating. What were you going to say?
No, and I was just gonna say really quickly, it's crazy because I feel like you get faster results too. That's my opinion when you do
Yeah.
everything as opposed to just doing one thing. Because with the acceptance thing, like that's again, that's one piece. So you're only getting one piece of the result, you know? So I don't even think it's so much a question of like these people just want a quick fix, like what's the easiest thing? I think it's like, hey, do you want to fully recover? Well, like this is the fastest way to do it when you're touching every aspect of the issue, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. I think that you're getting to the root, and a lot of times you'll even see faster and more substantial results because whenever I
Mm-hmm.
used acceptance, now that I'm looking back, I still was pretty anxious.
Yeah.
But I wasn't experiencing panic attacks and depersonalization realization anymore. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm recovered. I was preaching the acceptance gospel, man. I was like, dude, this is where it's at. Like, gosh, like I felt like my life was saved. And listen, like you said, I'm not bashing acceptance. I think that that's a
Mm-hmm.
piece of the puzzle. Inviting in symptoms definitely is important, but it's like 5% of the pie, whereas people make it seem as if it's 100% of the pie.
No.
And so basically, because I never dealt with the root of what was happening in my body, the tension, adrenaline, emotion, the fatigue, I didn't have lifestyle adjustments. I wasn't living a preventative lifestyle. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't have proper scientific education. I didn't have proper co-regulation. The symptoms all came back. And
Mm-hmm.
it's it's very, very frustrating when you thought you were recovered and then everything just comes back. It makes you feel very out of control
Mm-hmm.
of your life. And then for me, I tried the acceptance techniques that used to work and it didn't work this time. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh God. And then I found the distraction stuff and I was like playing, World of Warcraft. And I was like constantly like trying to game and like try to I was people try to talk to me and I'm like, no, I've got to distract my mind. That's what the
Uh-huh.
person said online. I've got to distract. And I remember like playing video games and feeling like out of body. And I
Yeah.
remember just like trying just continually to distract my mind. I was like, and then I was up at 3 in the morning and I was like playing, video games on my phone or whatever. I was like playing Temple Run and I was just like, is this really the best that is out there? Is just
Mm-hmm.
distract your mind or accept your symptoms. So we don't hear about the body side of things. And it's like there's there's popular knowledge and then there's academic knowledge. And popular knowledge is basically kind of like you've heard of like bro science, right? So if
Yeah.
I were to give you workout advice, it would be bro science. I don't know what the heck I'm talking. No, okay, I've got a
Mm-hmm.
basic understanding of working out, but you, I mean, like bro, like I don't know what you're doing with your workouts, but like, dude, it's working, bro.
Thank you.
Um, but if you were to give workout advice, something tells me it would probably be pretty academic. You'd probably be like, okay, here's or whatever. But let's say that somebody
Mhm,
has like a degree and they understand, human physiology and stuff like that. Right. Well, whenever it comes to the world of trauma, there's a huge gap between what the academics are saying and what is being said in popular culture. And that's because the academics have no idea how to articulate what they're saying.
mhm,
They're too smart. Like
mhm,
Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, he's probably one of the only academics that I've been able to find that is like really, really good at translating
mhm,
what we're seeing in the field of traumatology and neuroscience into practical language that everybody can understand. But whenever I started to study what the academics in the field of traumatology and neuroscience were saying about these symptoms, I was like, this is opposite of what everybody's saying, especially
mhm,
as it relates to the body. You never hear about the body. It's always some sort of cognitive technique that everybody's trying, the mind, the mind, the mind.
mhm,
But what about the body? And so that's a shift that I think is slowly starting to happen, but it's very slow moving, unfortunately. And we're still
mhm,
mind obsessed. And the mind is unfortunately not powerful enough to override
mhm.
extremely large amounts of tension, adrenaline, and emotion in the body.
Definitely, definitely. And something that I did that helped me a lot, like I'll share this with the viewers, like,
Of
and I
course.
do this
Yeah.
every single day, regardless. This is before, dpdr or any of that, but like mindfulness meditation, where it's like you're breathing and you come into your body and like you focus on your breath going in through the body and traveling all through all the way down to the feet and then coming out. And that really helped me like bring me back into my body to where like I'm aware of myself and it grounds you, because I think with DPDR and all of these different things, you're right, like you start to want to escape. But the more you
Right.
escape, the more the body like it stirs up a lot of tension. So like what meditation has helped me do, and again, I do this every day, no matter what. Forget anxiety, any of that. It brings you back down to base level so that you can
Yes.
go throughout the day and bring the body with you.
And so let's change the word mindfulness to bodyfulness.
There you go.
Right. And if
Yeah.
and if you and if you look at mindfulness, it came from Buddhism. And if you
hmm
study original mindfulness, they would start by doing what you're talking about. They would come
hmm
into the body and befriend the body first before they started to become aware of thoughts or befriend thoughts and things like that. And so true mindfulness is actually bodyfulness. It's
hmm
interoception, the
hmm
experience of the embodied self. And so that's the missing piece for a lot of people when it comes to the approach. The other missing piece is co-regulation because humans kill humans. But from a methodology perspective, the body is the missing piece that very few
hmm
people, like people, sometimes they'll get taught like some grounding techniques. We see that quite a bit. They'll work with like a
hmm
therapist or somebody who means well, but it's like, we need much more than grounding techniques.
hmm
We need
hmm
we need
hmm
we need an understanding of how to truly get in tune with the body, befriend the body, release the buildup of tension, adrenaline, emotion from the body. And so I love that you said that, man. And that's what's going to allow you to keep these results, man, is your body and making
hmm
sure that it stays in the state that it needs. So I freaking love it. And okay, any final words that you would want to say to people?
That's really it. Like I said, if you're doing something already and you're trying to figure this out on your own and it's not working, don't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You got to change it. And for me, I, before this my story goes on and on, but before this, that first bout I mentioned with DPDR where I smoked weed, I had dealt with being sensitized for years where I was in, anxiety, fight or flight for like 6, 7 years. And my body was symptomatic constantly. And it's like I was trying to figure it out on my own. I don't want to spend the money. And I'm like, oh, I can do it myself. I'm strong enough. Man, you're spinning your wheels in the mud. So I encourage people like, if you have the means, do it. because it's your life. You don't get that time back. So make the investment, really dive into the strategies and be consistent, and you will not regret it.
That's awesome. And I'm so humbled to hear that, man. And, you know, I think a lot of people are going to resonate with you and your story. And I'm just so blessed, man, that you took this time. It means so much. I mean, I literally help people beat this all the time, but so often, people don't take the time to do these interviews. I also haven't asked enough because I'm just like, I
Mm.
don't want to be pushy with anybody. I hate that. I don't, I'm just real big on just like letting people be their own person and stuff like that. So I just,
Uh-huh.
but I'm like, you know what? People need to see this though, man. They need to see that this stuff is happening. And I've learned that I'm not going to be timid about the transformations that are happening anymore. That's one thing my business coaches have said. They're like, dude, there's these people out there that help with similar symptoms that you do. And they
Hmm.
come off as like super confident and they'll just like, they'll take like the smallest little thing and like blast it out on their social media. And
Hmm.
here you are helping people get over this left and right. But because you don't want to come off as arrogant, you don't want to come off
Hmm.
as like the wrong way, you're coming off as timid. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be ashamed to promote the transformations that are happening every single week whenever people work with me. That's not me being arrogant. That's me being
Hmm.
confident and telling
Hmm.
you that this stuff is working. And I'm going to start asking more and more people to jump on these calls, man, as they see results so people can know that it's working. And so thank you so much, man, from the bottom of my heart. Like, dude, and I want to say again, you know, there's something about you, man. Like, I know you're human just like we all are human, but like you have something amazing on your life, dude. Like you have just this incredible energy and this positivity and this light, dude, that you're going to shine into some very dark places. And the world needs people like you, man. So it's an honor to get to coach you. It's also an honor just to get to see, your future and what ends up happening. In any way that I can help with that, man, please let me know. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
going to
I
stop the
appreciate
recording.
it.
Thanks so much, man.
All right.
Dude, no problem. Give me 1 second
All
here.
right, no problem.